Welcome back, guys. And today I want to talk about Dr. King. As you know, January is the month where we celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. In fact, he's the only public figure, only black man to have a national holiday named after him without being a president. And that's what I want to get into today, that Dr. King is not the savior of black people. And you'd say, Brother Rosh, why would you even make such a statement? Well, you'd be surprised how many people have this false conception about Martin Luther King. What's being taught to our kids about Martin Luther King, the image that is put up of him. Now, this isn't a video that's going to bash Martin Luther King and the great things that he's done and the sacrifice that he put himself through and his family through. This isn't one of those videos. What I want to address is that the myths and misconceptions about Martin Luther King, the things he did, and what he actually did for black people. And number one, we're going to speak bluntly and put it plainly, just who is the savior of black people. And we'll talk about that as we go through this video. But guys, people have a lot of misconceptions about Martin Luther King. A lot of people believe he ended slavery. Yes, Martin Luther King ended slavery. And it's not only white people believe that. It's a lot of black people who believe it, especially the younger generation. There's a phrase that I like to say, that everyone believes that history exists, or history begins the day that they were born. And that's so far from the truth. And like I said, a lot of people believe that Martin Luther King ended slavery, and we know that's so far from the truth. Martin Luther King wasn't even born when slavery ended. A lot of people believe that he ended segregation. Now, he was a fighter and he fought for it. He fought for the cause, but he didn't end segregation. He had a big part to play in it, and he advocated for it, but he did not end segregation. That's another myth that people believe. Another big one that people believe, and that's the thing it's being taught to our kids, whether consciously or subconsciously, to our kids, to black kids especially, and to all races, is that Martin Luther King is the leader of African Americans. In fact, some people believe that black history only begins with Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and in that era, the 60s and the 70s era. And that's so far from the truth. Our history goes back all the way to Africa, and we'll talk about that. Now, at that time, did he speak up for African Americans and their rights? Yes. Did he speak up for the disenfranchised and black folks altogether? Yes, he did. And some people will even say, this is the crazy part, that Martin Luther King, he didn't die for black people. Yes, Martin Luther King didn't die for black people. And there's a lot of black people who believe this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Martin Luther King didn't die for black people. It's easy to sit back and play an armchair quarterback and play revisionist history when you weren't actually in the fight, and you didn't put your family through that situation. You didn't sacrifice the things that he sacrificed. So I'm not going to disrespect the man and say that he didn't die for black people. Yes, he did advocate. He fought for black people. He was fighting for justice for black people. Now, was the cause right? What he was fighting for? Some say yeah, some say no. What I would say is that I believe he should have advocated for blacks not integrating into the society, but advocating for blacks to have their rights, to have the ability to create wealth for themselves, to just be treated fairly, just within the economic system. Because remember, during that time in the 60s and before then, blacks were doing well. Our families were together. We had like our own economic system. If you remember Black Wall Street, Tulsa, stuff like that. Black people were they were buying goods from each other. They were shopping within the community. If you look at statistics now, we know that the black dollar doesn't circulate within the black community. It's the fastest to leave out of the black community. So I think if he would have advocated more for blacks having their economic freedom, having justice in that, having equality and the ability to provide for themselves, teach their children, have their own schools, have their own communities, own businesses, I think it would have been a better cause to fight for, instead of him fighting for equality amongst integrating, going to schools with people that hate you, wanting to shop from people that hate you, wanting to sit at a restaurant where people hate you. I just don't think that was the right idea. I believe he should have just advocated for more resources from the government for blacks to create their own economic system, economic stability for themselves and for their community. Just as the Chinese do, just as the Jewish people do, just as all other races do. Just think about it when you go shopping within a store. When was the last time you seen the African American section? We don't have that. You'll see the Italian section, Italian foods. You'll see Latino, the Mexican aisle, their foods, their goods, their brands. You even see the Chinese section. But last I checked, we have some great black chefs, great black products. Soul food is a great thing and it tastes great, but you don't see no soul food in your local grocery store. So that all goes back to that, what I was talking about us enjoying our own and creating our own economic system where we can have a legacy for our children that can be passed down for generations. So yeah, I'm not gonna disrespect Dr. King and say he didn't die for black people. So here's what we know about Martin Luther King. Are we to acknowledge what he did and what he did for black people? Yes. Martin Luther King was very bright. If you didn't know, he attended college at 15 years old. Yes, he attended college at 15 years old. Nowadays, everyone is just graduating high school at about 17, 18 years old. So he was extremely smart. He graduated with a doctorate in theology. Yes, he had a doctorate in theology. Dr. King, he wrote 5 books. Yes, I didn't even know this. Dr. King wrote 5 books. So he was an author. Martin Luther King was the first man to receive the Times cover, the Man of the Year. He was the first black man to receive the Man of the Year on Time magazine. Another fact about Martin Luther King, he was the youngest at the time to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, he was the youngest at the time to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And here are some more interesting facts about Dr. King that I think a lot of people disparage when they talk about him, when they dismiss the things that he's done. I don't think that's fair to do such a thing when you're sitting back after the fact, when you didn't sacrifice what he did, when you didn't put your family through what he put his family through. I don't know if you guys know this, but Martin Luther King was stabbed in the chest while doing a book signing. Yes, a lady came up to him and stabbed him in the chest, where he almost died. He was rushed to the hospital and had to receive emergency surgery. But that wasn't the first time that an attempt was taken on his life. Later, his house was firebombed. Yes, guys, his family was in life or death situations. His house was firebombed. Dr. King, he led boycotts and was arrested nearly 30 times. So guys, he went to jail nearly 30 times. How many of us would do that? Be willing to sacrifice and go to jail for what we believe in? Not only once, not twice, not 3 times, but 30 times. So again, I believe it's very unfair to dismiss what he's done. The thing that he stood for, the cause that he stood for, that he fought for. Again, it may have been somewhat wrong-headed. The cause may have been wrong, but he still sacrificed himself and his family for what he believed in. And you have to respect someone for that. And finally, another interesting fact that I didn't even know about. His mom was later shot and killed in church. It was some crazy lunatic who he wanted to kill the mom and dad because of who their son was. So he wasn't able to shoot to get the dad, but he shot Dr. King's mom and she was killed. Interesting fact, guys. So again, he was finally assassinated. So he died, his mom died, his house was firebombed. He went to jail numerous times. He put his life and he put his family on the line, guys. So yes, are we to acknowledge what he did? Are we to pay homage to what he did? Yes. Are our kids supposed to respect Martin Luther King and his sacrifices? Yes. But is Martin Luther King the savior of black people? Is Martin Luther King the savior of black folk? And the answer to that is no. We have one true savior of black people. We have one true savior of African Americans. He says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through him. And that savior, guys, is Yahushua HaMashiach. Yes, did Dr. King fight for the poor? Did he try to proclaim liberty for the captives? Yes, he did. But remember, Yahushua, and this is what we must teach our kids. This is what we must teach our future generations. Yahushua was doing these things. Yahushua was doing these things hundreds of years ago, before Martin Luther King was even a thought, and we must never forget that. Luke 4:18, Yahushua was speaking. He says, Yah has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. Yes, guys, Yahushua came to set free and give freedom to those who are oppressed, and give recovering of sight to the blind, and proclaim the good news to those who are poor, guys. And we know that Dr. King was a minister. He took a lot of his inspiration from the Bible. So he gives honor to Yahushua HaMashiach, which he called Jesus. But he took a lot of his teachings, a lot of his ways. Remember, he had a non-violent way about his ministry, about his cause that he promoted. And whether that tactic was right or wrong, that's for each person to decide. But here's the great things that our Savior has done that we must teach our kids. Deuteronomy 6:6-7 tells us that these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Teach them to your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. So these are the great things that we're supposed to teach our children about our Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach. We're supposed to teach our kids that, yes, he changed water into wine. John 2:1-11. He healed the sick. Yahushua, he healed the paralyzed. Yahushua, he fed 5,000 with only a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. In fact, he turned one fish into a Moby Dick sandwich. And again, he fed 5,000 people. Yahushua, he healed the blind. He raised Lazarus from the dead. In fact, Yahushua, he defeated death himself and was resurrected. These are the things that we must teach our children. These are the things we must talk to them about when we're at home, when we're out and about, when we're lying down, when we're getting up each and every day. This is what we're supposed to teach our kids. This is our Savior. This is who we honor. This is who we give all the praise to. Yes, Dr. King did great things. Yes, we are supposed to take note of it. Yes, we're supposed to tip our hats to the sacrifices that he made. But never forget and never let the world promote that Dr. King is the savior of black people. Never forget to teach our children to tell the truth of who our true savior is, and that's Yahushua HaMashiach.